Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the top of the show, I think Joy has got some news items or other items for us. So, Joy, what do you have?
Well, I have two pieces of music news and one piece that I'm not super familiar with why this would be an issue, but I do have my previous British, I don't know, I wasn't nationalist is not the word, the guy from Britain with me. And so I was curious how he thought about it. Apparently this song, I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles by the Proclaimers, has been removed from the King's coordination playlist over anti-royal views. So basically, the guys from the Proclaimers are self-declared Republicans. And Tim, give us a little bit of insight, because I know Republican there doesn't mean what I'm thinking it does.
Yeah, like in the United States, a Republican is somebody who's into conservative politics, maybe would be voting for the Republican Party or, you know, some variation thereof. In the UK, a Republican is somebody who wants to abolish the monarchy.
Okay. Well, that would make sense why they wouldn't want them played there. Apparently, the Scottish rock duo are self-declared Republicans, been very vocal about their viewpoints. Last summer, Charlie Reid stated his support for Simone Hill, an author and tutor who was initially charged with threatening or abusive words or disorderly conduct against a proclamation during a ceremony for King Charles. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to see what the difference was. But they are self-proclaimed Republican to a T, and I didn't know this, and this is kind of interesting, Tim. The reason I brought this up was each song that goes on that list goes through a committee to get approved for that. It's not just one guy is checking. From what I'm reading, is there is a whole list of music for this coordination, and it's going through 5 channels to get songs approved.
And where's this going to be published? Is this going to be a Spotify playlist or something?
I don't know, but I'm going to be able to look for it. I'd be curious. So they said that it includes Katy Perry, Take That, Lionel Richie, and others. And some of those people will be playing live as well.
Okay. I mean, all of those artists are great, but if you have the King's coronation in the UK, shouldn't all those people be British artists?
I would think so, but to be fair, I think we've had presidents swore in America, and I'm pretty sure Elton John was there last time.
Yeah, Elton John's husband is American, so I mean, he's sort of halfway there.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Take That, I think, is British.
They are.
Lionel Richie might have a cousin who lives in England. I don't control the list. I was listening to Take That the other night. And I almost said, it says, will be held on 6th May. And I had to stop myself because it says, I think May the 6th, where it says 6th May, because it's in the UK, it's The Guardian. And I almost said it, I was like, Tim's going to laugh at me.
Yeah, I've fully adapted to the US method of dates, which is month, day, year. But as I've said many times before, these calendars that start on a Sunday, it has to go away. Everything I have, my calendar for each week starts on a Monday. I cannot get my head around that. And all of my calendars are changed to that. And what happens is that people come into my office and they'll say, how are you fixed for next week? We could meet to so-and-so, so-and-so. And I swing my monitor's on a swing mount, and you swing it around to show them. You bring up your calendar, and they're like, what's going on with your calendar?
I mean, to be fair, I really do feel like Sunday is the refresh before Monday. Unless, we kind of talked about those religious kind of set the week off very slow, kind of what you want. But outside of that connotation, I feel like almost everybody, even if it's not on our calendars, I still think most people think the week begins on Monday, generally in America, because most of us start, our day shifts on Monday. Typically, there are other people out there, but I don't know. I think of Sunday as your day to relax before you have to have the chaotic Monday.
That is incredibly true. I mean, some people would maybe start work as shift worker, might start work on a Sunday, but for a lot of 9 to 5 type people, Monday is the first day of your week.
Well, and I think that's ingrained to us because that's how school is too. You know what I mean? Growing up, your school week starts on Monday. So I feel like it's ingrained from, 5 years old on.
Yes, it is. Okay. So what else do you have?
All right. So the next one is not as random as what I just said, but Harry Belafonte passed away today. Did you know that?
I did indeed. And in fact, I had that as my music news item, but I'm sure as being the big story that it is, you've already grabbed it.
Yes. So for those who don't know, he's kind of famous. He was a breakthrough calypso artist. So he kind of has I don't know if this is like blasphemy. I don't really know what calypso versus Jamaican sound is, but he kind of has like a Jamaican sound, but they're saying he's calypso. It's probably the instruments, I would think. And he's originally from New York, though, and he's famous for songs like Jump in the Line, Shake, 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 Shanora, the Limbo Song, Island in the Sun, Deo, Banana. I almost said Banana Peel. It's Banana Boat.
Banana Boat song.
So those are kind of probably, the Matilda. Matilda, that's another one that most people know. We've talked about Charlie, my husband's love for dramatic music. He loves this. I've heard Shake, 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 Sonora probably more than Chippy Legal. Yes, he was 96 years old, though.
Yeah, he lived a very long and fruitful life, left behind a great legacy and left behind some great music. He also features on We Are the World. Now, he didn't have a solo performance on We Are the World, but if you watch the behind-the-scenes video, while they were warming up to the Banana Boat song with him. Oh,
you're right. I've never really thought about that, but I have seen that. That is him. I hadn't put that together. I forgot he did that baby. Okay, have you ever heard the song Mary's Boy Child, the Christmas song?
Yeah.
That song is so weird to me. But apparently he did a version of it. If you've never heard it, guys, I don't know why. It's just like that Christmas song that just doesn't fit the mold to me. And for some reason, every time it comes on, I'm like, no, I don't want to hear this.
Well, we all know the definitive version of that song is by Boney M.
It is, and I've just had an image of Mary's Love with the backup singers, the backup female singers in my head as soon as I said it. I guess he has a version, but I am much more familiar with the Boney M's version.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny? I made a playlist the other day that had Boney M in it, and I added Rasputin, and it was the #1 streamed song for Boney M on Spotify, and it was a housey disco remix, not the original.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard some remixes, but I'm an original person. It doesn't surprise me, though. That song has had a lot of resurgence because of the Just Dance video game. There's a famous Rasputin dance, which, I mean, I've played it on there plenty of times. And ever since that happened, the first time, and to be fair, I'm not sure how far back my knowledge of Boney M goes. I feel like Rasputin was probably one of the first songs I got into. Then it kind of went to Ma Baker, maybe. And then there's Daddy Cool. That's them, right?
That's it. Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is about Boney M, they were put together by the same chap who put together Milli Vanilli.
Yeah. Because they weren't singing, guys.
Yeah. People rag on Milli Vanilli, but it was great pop music at its time. And, they were pioneers. They shouldn't be criticized. They were pioneers of doing that.
I mean, if I can get paid to just sit around and dance and not actually have to even sing, sign me up. Like, you guys are all hating on them like, oh, well, they weren't actually singing. So they're getting the record producers that are willing to pay them to just stand there and be faces are the ones you should be yelling at. Don't hate them. They got the good gig.
Yeah, they were picked for a certain look. They were attractive people, and they danced around, and they were great dancers. I mean, everyone's happy.
People are so worked up about it, but I'm like, good on them.
Well, there we are. Well, we say rock in peace to Harry Belafonte. Thank you for your music, and your legacy will live on, sir.
I waved by like the people could see me. You guys can't see me.
Yeah, I was talking to Joy the other day about putting some of this more of the stuff on YouTube. And I thought of uploading full episodes to YouTube because I thought, well, let's expand the reach of the No Name Musicast. Let's put our episodes on YouTube, maybe with the video, maybe without. I don't know. I was contemplating it. And I uploaded one episode to YouTube and I've got it ready to go. It's not published, but it's in draft. And I thought, before I hit go, let's just see how many listens NPR has for similar podcasts. So I listen to NPR podcasts on your normal podcast platforms. And as we've said before, Our podcast is available on all of them. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts,
iHeart,
Good Pods, whatever you listen to. And that's how we publish. And that's how we get our stats, etc. And NPR had a press release the other day, or maybe it was a few months ago, saying that to increase the reach of their podcast, they were going to publish them to YouTube. And not as like podcasts, but just like as a video. So you'd have a static image and then the audio of the podcast, because they felt they could reach a lot more people like that.
Yeah, I have a vegan that I follow on YouTube. She does cheap, lazy vegan food, and she has a podcast she does that with. I will listen to.
Yeah. So, NPR is the largest podcasting organization in the United States. Their listenership for podcasts is huge. It's bigger than Joe Rogan. It's bigger than whoever. It's way up there in the charts. All of their various podcasts they do, and one of their very popular ones is Planet Money, and I listen to that, and that's really interesting. And like I said, they get, if not hundreds of thousands, they get millions of listens for Planet Money in particular, just to pick one of them. So I went on YouTube to see how many listens the last Planet Money episode had on YouTube. And it was like 400. At which point I thought our little indie podcast is not really going to make a dent in that for the amount of work it's going to take to turn 120 episodes into YouTube videos.
Probably not worth your time.
No.
Maybe eventually if people want to start paying us for a Patreon, that'll be what goes up on the Patreon.
Maybe, but if you're a Patreon member, you would probably be listening on the podcasting platforms.
True that. Never mind. There goes my idea.
But there you go. Well, that was a conversation that I meant to have with Joy before we went on air, but I thought I'd just share it with everyone. What do you think? I mean, if you think it's going to increase our reach, we'll do it. But I mean, I'm very happy with the way we publish our content right now.
I agree. And it's just fun for us. We get to enjoy this. It gives us a change of pace.
Exactly.
We joke about people coming on and sponsoring us, but mostly we just enjoy this. Talking to you guys.
We love to do it. We're very passionate about music. I love spending time with Joy. I love talking about music with her. And the fact that we get to share it with you is a bonus.
Everything Tim said.
Exactly. Okay, so this week is my topic. And I've been thinking about this one. So I've been doing the 1001 albums you must listen to before you die challenge with our listener, Megan. And I do it on Twitter. You can see what we get up to on there and the albums we post and the ranking and all that kind of stuff. But over the course of the last few weeks, we were stuck in the year 1967 for a long time, it seems. It was almost 2 weeks. And this challenge goes from 1956, I think it is, up to like 2000 and something. And it's like almost a 3-year challenge if you listen to one of these albums a day. But 67 lingered for a long time. And a few other Twitter people chimed in and said 67 was an incredibly pivotal year for music and otherwise. So I decided to do a year based around 1967, or not a year, an episode based around the year 1967.
Interesting. I mean, I can think kind of there's like a lot of different genres that were popular at that time. So I could see how this could be, you're going into the 70s. Yeah, I see 1967 that way.
Absolutely. So what I thought I'd do before I get into the music, so I've pulled a list of music that was released in 1967. I thought I would just go through some facts about 1967. So 1967 was the year the first successful human heart-to-heart transplant was done.
Interesting.
Which you think it really, I mean, that's something that's still a major operation for someone and is not always successful, but it's something that you think is just a standard thing. You hear about, I don't say you hear about it all the time, but it's something you hear of. But it was only 1967. It wasn't really that long ago.
And it makes you wonder, like, up until that point, what were they doing to serve those? Like, how were they even helping those people? Like, I guess it'd probably just be medicine, but it's like, you're right, though. Not that long ago. Not
that long ago at all. The other thing, in 1967, you had the Monterey International Pop Festival in California, and that featured Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Janis Joplin, the Steve Miller Band, Simon and Garfunkel, and the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said this. There were so many good, influential artists at that time.
Yeah, it was also 67 was a big year for Evel Knievel because he jumps his motorcycle over 16 cars lined up in a row, and that was great. It was like, yeah, go Evel. And then he fails in his attempt to jump the fountains at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
Aw, poor Evel.
Yeah, it seemed to be Evel Knievel spent an awful lot of time crashing his motorcycle. I mean, when you look into the life and legacy of Evel Knievel, he performed a lot of great stunts, but you also hear about a lot of failures of his stunts.
Well, what's interesting about that, though, is you make a really good point because, like, whenever someone does something like crazy stunts for a living, you hear I don't know how much I've actually heard of Evel Knievel being successful. Like, people loved him. He had success, but I always hear about his failures. Whereas most of the time you're always hearing with most people who are doing like motorcycle stuff, like how they succeed. I don't know. It's almost like he kind of made, I don't know what I'd say. He made like being notorious for being bad in a way.
Exactly. I mean, he's legendary. And I've told the story before about my Evel Knievel wind-up motorcycle. And not that anyone can see this, but it's right up on a shelf up there. And I don't know, it was just an icon of the 70s, Evel Knievel toys and what have you.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time trying to get to the point that he's popular for not being good. Very long-winded today.
Also, in 1967, John Lennon got his psychedelic painted Rolls Royce delivered.
Huh. I've seen a picture of it. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the Hard Rock have it now.
Did he like get it custom made or did they give it to him? That's the question.
I mean, he had Beatles money. I mean, he bought a Rolls Royce, but I mean, he had it painted psychedelically.
I was just thinking, like, if I owned a car company, I might give the Beatles free cars and be like, hey, look, a Beatles driving my car.
That's true, but then would you want them to like desecrate it with a psychedelic paint job? Especially like a Rolls Royce is seen as the best car that you can buy, the classiest car.
You're giving Elton John a Rolls Royce, you get what you get. That's an Elton John Lennon.
John Lennon.
I was thinking Elton John for my conversation earlier, but John Lennon, if you're giving him a Rolls Royce, Tim, I wouldn't expect anything less.
Also in 1967, the musical Hair opens off Broadway.
Great music.
And we lost Otis Redding in a plane crash, and he was only 26.
Which is sad because he's a favorite of mine.
Yeah, so young, but yet so iconic. So let me just go through some other stats while we're here. So in US, I'll go through some US dollar ones first. The average cost of a new house was $14,250. The average income per year was $7,300.
I would have to see what inflation was, but I still think we got it worse.
It was 2.78%.
Okay.
The average cost of a new car was $2,750. And then the average month's rent was $125.
Okay. Well, I'm way off of those numbers.
And the average gallon of gas costs 33 cents.
I'm guessing that's all. Has gas always been expensive in the UK like it is now, or is that a more modern thing?
It always has been expensive. Now, it says here the average price of a gallon of petrol was 5 shillings and 2 pence, or 27 new pence. Now, that sounds less than cents, but I don't know what the pound dollar rate was at the time, and I bet you it was probably still expensive.
Fair enough. I was just curious, but I do like the point that Tim's like, let me say this. I do like the point my dad makes. My dad was like, one time he was like, yeah, but they're so tiny. You don't have to drive very much in those European countries. And Tim goes, well, you're not driving very much anyway. You're just sitting at traffic lights.
It's true.
He's like, you're using all your gas because you're stuck at every traffic light. Anyway.
Exactly. Well, the average, also in the UK, the average house price was £3,840. And a car there, a Mark II Ford Cortina, a fine British sort of car, £749.
What? I mean, I guess we don't know what the conversion rate is, but that still seems pretty vastly different than what you said in the American money.
Yeah, I think I don't know how these are prices that are not adjusted for inflation. Yeah. And it's hard to work out. And plus they're all in 1967 dollars and pounds as well. So unless you adjust it for fully inflation and look at exchange rates, it's hard to tell.
Which we don't have the time to do on this music podcast.
Yeah. Listen to NPR's Planet Money if you want stuff about the economy. Don't listen to us for that.
They're gonna think we're being sponsored by NPR now, Tim. We are not.
Okay, so I pulled a list of great music from 1967, and there was some really good music released in 1967. So, of course, the big album of 67 was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles, an album which changed music. It changed, studio production. I think it's the first album to feature all the lyrics. It was the first single album, I believe, released in a gatefold sleeve. And it came with a little sheet where you had cutouts and all this kind of stuff going on. I have a copy of that my mum bought the day it came out, and I still have it downstairs, a mono copy of the album. So it was such a huge album.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to pick a song from it, and I didn't want to pick maybe the more obvious one. So I picked Lovely Rita.
Oh, I actually have a cool story about this. But before we say that, it was also that band that guy got that Rolls Royce.
That would be great. Yes, it's the same band. It's the Rolls Royce man is in this band.
Anyway, but no. So one time when I was in high school, I went to I don't remember what it was. It was kind of like a little local thing, and it was some type of money went to like a club or something. I think maybe my French club, but there was different people playing different songs. And one of the artists that was there, he had kind of like a list of songs that you could request, songs he knew how to play on his guitar or whatever. Mm-hmm. And this was one of the first times he had a whole section of Beatles music. And I was probably, 15 years old, 16. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard that song until he played it. And he did such a wonderful job. I went and looked it back up. I was so embarrassed that I didn't know the song by the Beatles.
Yeah, I'd have thought you'd be someone who would know Sgt. Pepper's back to front even from an early age.
I don't know why I feel like my Beatles love came later. It's just weird. It's just like now I feel like I own, like you said, I own a copy, not one of Tim's professional mono from his mom copies, everybody, but I have a copy.
Yeah, you have one that you got in Barnes and Noble or something.
I think it was a Walmart, Tim. Not even that fancy, but I'm just saying I have one over there. But no, I don't know that I did. I knew like radio hits. I knew major songs. Like, I would have known like Paperback Writer and, Can't Buy Me Love, or like, whatever, those songs. Like I would have known all that. But for some reason, I don't think I had stepped that outside. And I remember he had that. And then there's a few other songs that were listed under the Beatles. And shout out to Michael Davis. Not that he listens to my podcast, but he motivated me to go back and find out a bunch of those songs. So kind of equated my love into the Beatles even more.
Well, there we go. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate what you did for Joy and her expanding her musical horizons.
I think he's in the Air Force now. He was like one of the students, so he was my age as well.
Okay, well there we go. Okay, well there's the Beatles. So the next one I'm coming on to is by Cream from the album Disraeli Gears, again, obviously from 67. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you actually say this. It stands for She Walks Like a Bearded Rainbow. It's like Swirlar. Brr. Do you know the track I mean?
No. Are you having a seizure? What is happening?
Are you come to me in the morning?
Yeah.
Boo, boo, but the rainbow has a mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song is called She Walks Like a Bearded Rainbow, but it's always listed at SWLABR.
Oh. That's what you were trying to say.
Yes,
Swallow. Walks like a beat. I was like, whoa, my son. And I was like, what? I was worried Tim was having a stroke. Okay, well, that was uneventful, but I do know that song. Don't really have a great story for that one. But I will say the band Cream is one of those bands that I feel like is completely underrated. Like, you never hear people talk about them.
In the guitar community, you hear, because people say that, a lot of people will say Eric Clapton peaked with John Mayall's Blues Breakers. And that is such an amazing album. And that was around the time people were putting spray paint up on walls that said Clapton is God, because no one had really heard or had a guitar hero like that before.
Yeah.
And for me, I love the Blues Breakers, but I always think Clapton peaked in Cream. I mean, you had Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce, improvisational, great songs. And his guitar tone and phrasing and playing in this has such fire in it. It really has a lot of fire. And as you got into the late 60s and early 70s, the fire was put out and he became a little bit more middle of the roadish. I mean, and even things like, Layla's great, but that's all Duane Allman playing guitar on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something about the sound of Cream, and I think you're right. In guitar circles, yes, absolutely. People will talk about how amazing Cream were. But I think if you speak to the person on the street, they're probably more into your Wonderful Tonights and your Laylas and stuff than Cream.
Well, and then you've got the main song I think of when I feel like anyone thinks radio hits, they think like Sunshine of Your Love, probably, not Swallowable, as Tim did earlier. Because you're right, you've got Jack Bruce, you've got Ginger on, I almost thought Ginger Spice in my head. That's why I laughed, everybody. Ginger on drums. They're wonderful. Everybody's probably wondering, that's his name, Joy. Why'd you laugh? But I almost said Ginger Spice. So anyway, yeah, she was in Cream, everybody. Ginger Spice was in Cream. They were British. It makes sense.
It would be a very different band if Jerry Halliwell was on drums in Cream.
It was a different time. I don't even know when she was born. But anyway, and I feel like, aren't they known as the first like kind of super group? Because you've got 3 distinct artists that kind of went on to do their own thing. 2's very, very popular, but...
Yeah, of a fashion, yes. I mean, sort of Blind Faith was maybe considered the first real supergroup like that. But yes, they were a big power trio.
All right. Well, I mean, not that really said much about the song, but I do think that if you guys aren't up on your Cream, go listen to it.
Absolutely. Okay, so another song that was released in 1967 from the self-titled album, The Doors, that would be Break On Through.
To the Other Side.
That's correct.
I felt like Tim was asking me a question. I mean, this is one of their bigger hits. I love the sound of Jim Morrison's voice. I don't know, like we kind of had, what was it that one guy said about them? And then I thought he was referencing how they sound. And you're like, no, Joy, that's just the way the guitar sounds. Was that The Doors?
I think it maybe was The Doors, yes.
If nobody's listened to that previous episode, that's not going to make sense. But Tim was talking about them and he described them in some way. And I went, oh, yeah, they do kind of sound like that. And then Tim went, no, Joy, that's the technique they're using on the guitar. And I was like, oh, of course. But anyway, I love the sound of Jim Morrison's voice. I think it's fantastic. The tone, everything. Break On Through to the Other Side is like what their number 1 hit ever, I would think.
Well, Light My Fire is another one that's also referenced a great deal. I didn't pick Light My Fire because I thought it was an obvious pick, but that's why I picked Break On Through to the Other Side in brackets.
I can't not say it. I can't just say Break On Through. It bothers me. I mean, I think my number 1 Doors song is every time somebody says the word, when people say people are strange, I can't not go, people are strange. You know, that's what my brain always goes to. Anytime someone says that's strange or that was strange. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, iconic band. As I've said many times before, I wasn't really aware much of the Doors until that film came out.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about them just kind of like, I had friends who were into them. I started learning about it as a kid, but I didn't really grow up with them. I was definitely probably a teenager when I learned about them. But it always helped that, you know, as a kid, everybody was asking me. I was always being heard by Dad being asked, oh, your name's Jim Morrison, huh? So he had to explain it to me at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't look anything like Jim Morrison. Not a little bit. Sorry, Dad.
Okay, all right. We'll move away from Jim Morrison and the other Jim Morrison, and we will move on to this one. So this is from Scott McKenzie, and this is San Francisco. Be sure to wear some flowers in your hair.
So I'm familiar with that song, but I'm not familiar with Scott McKenzie. Is there more than one version?
I think the version that you would know is by Scott McKenzie, but I don't know if Scott McKenzie has really done anything else. And in fact, I have my Spotify playlist up here because I'm fully embracing this now. I've got the Windows thing installed on my computer. It's all going on. So let's click on Scott McKenzie. He has 1.2 million monthly listeners. And what does he have in his discography? He has 2 albums and 2 singles. And the number one thing he's known for is the San Francisco song. There's a few other songs, but nothing. I'm looking at this list and there's nothing that I'm familiar with.
Okay, good. Well, I don't feel so bad because as soon as you said that, I'm like, who is Scott McKenzie? I mean, that song was obviously kind of a protest song. I don't know if it was generally a protest song. It's more about going out and being a hippie and true love, peace.
Peace and love, peace and love.
But it seems to, I'm pretty sure they'd literally like put flowers in the barrel of a gun in the video or something. Like that's where that thing started from, the cliche thing, Tim. I think that's this music video.
And whenever you sort of see videos of like San Francisco, Free Love, Woodstock, stuff like that, they always seem to play that song.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to know what happened to the singer because it does have a cool sound, but maybe he's making enough off of royalties because it's been used in every movie about 1960 whatever. Since the beginning of time. I mean
that's true, but I mean. Maybe he didn't sign a very good deal and he only got a performance royalty. Who can honestly say?
Well, I mean, if he's listening and wants to come on and talk to us, go ahead.
One of these days we're going to have that. We're going to get an email from somebody. It'd be like the lead singer from Tapao or something and say, yeah, I heard you mention me. Can I come to your podcast and set the record straight?
My fear would be it'd be somebody I insulted their hair and I would go back and listen to however many episodes we're at, Tim, and be like, okay, did I ever say anything negative about this person?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, we do our podcast and we chat about stuff and, we try and be respectful and we try and put out a product that we think you're going to like. But everything there we say is in permanent record and it's published. So people can go back and find it.
I'm never going to be able to run for office. They're going to be like, that was the girl who doesn't even know where Saudi Arabia is on the map. I'm never going to run for public office after this. Oh, well, it is.
There we are, Joy. You're never going to be President Morrison or anything. I mean, it's never going to happen.
I don't think I'm going to be the president, but maybe mayor. Maybe I can get mayor status.
There we are, see.
Anyway.
Okay, well, the next song I have, as sadly we see your political aspirations dissolving in front of us. But the next song that we have is the Monkees and their song Daydream Believer.
Homecoming Queen is all I could think. My brain started singing it. It was talking about, like Daydream Believer and a Homecoming Queen. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what to say about it. For what it's worth, the only reason I'm blanking is because I can hear the song in my head now because it's such a catchy tune that it'll be stuck in my head for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's an incredibly catchy song. And as we've said before, the Monkees was set up by a US TV station who wanted to sort of cash in on the success of the Beatles' Hard Day's Night. And I've almost finished watching the Monkees. Some of the episodes are unwatchable. They're terrible. Some of them are good, but it's too much, some of them. Some of you like, where's the plot in this episode? It doesn't even have one.
Do you know what one of my favorite Monkees kind of cameos was? You know what Sabrina the Teenage Witch is, right? From the 90s. I'm sure you haven't seen it, but you know what it is.
Sure, I actually have seen, if not a complete episode, but I have seen bits of it.
Okay. So there's this one scene where somehow one of the... I think Sabrina like zaps at a Backstreet Boy or something as her little pop quiz, like zaps him because she's a witch, like makes him appear in front of her. And it's probably some pop reference. I can't exactly remember who. And then the aunts kind of like want their little, some cute guy to show up for them that's a musician. And Davy Jones from the Monkees who comes in. And I always think about that because as soon as she zaps him, he's like, cheer up, sleep. That's what it straight goes into. And he's wearing like, classic 70s jeans and like a long neck tunic shirt.
That's great. I would have laughed my head off if I've seen that.
I thought it was hilarious because, she was bringing her little pop boy band and then the aunt brings in the Monkees because it's her pop boy band. There you are.
That's great. Okay, well, let's move on to this next one. So this one is by The Small Faces. And this is the song Ichigu Park.
A song that I forget exists. But then when someone says it, I go, oh, yeah, I know that song.
Yeah, and it's got that great, it's all too beautiful.
It's an earworm for sure. Yeah. Though I don't know if I would know it by its name if someone said it to me off the streets.
Yeah, I know it as Ichiku Park, but I think a lot of people call it "It's All Too Beautiful" or whatever the chorus line is.
Yeah, I've heard it called that. It stuck out in my head because it's kind of a weird name, but yeah, it does have a cool chorus line. And I don't know if it was a major hit in America, to be honest. Were they an American band or were they from somewhere else?
Small Faces were a UK band. The guitar player was Steve Marriott.
Huh. And there you go, guys. I didn't know what his name was, but Tim did.
No, most of my music knowledge is based around knowing who guitar players are and what equipment they played. He did use a Gibson Les Paul Custom. I do know that.
Okay, well, I shouldn't have asked everyone. What shoes did he wear, Tim? Did he wear clogs?
I don't know. That cannot be confirmed or denied. I only know the footwear of one rock star.
And if you are an avid listener, you will already know what rock star this is.
Yeah, the grand clogged one.
The one who works with NASA.
Yeah, and and makes 3D books and then saves wildlife.
And has never changed his hair, but it has gotten gray.
Or white, actually.
Well, yeah, it's white at this point. You're right. I always think it looks like a wig, like he's going to go to Parliament, like one of those court things in the UK, like a powdered wig. All right. Well, anyway, what's next, Tim?
Okay, so this one is from Sly and the Family Stone, and this is the song "Dance to the Music."
I went through a Sly and the Family Stone, like, I don't know, 6-month tunnel where I dove really deeply into their music. Mm-hmm. And that is an incredibly talented band. Oh my gosh.
It's fabulous. I mean, you have the singer, obviously, mm-hmm. but the whole band is such a good band.
And I started because they're from California, and I kind of went down this. I love, they've got like Dance to the Music, Everyday People, Family Affair. I don't know. Just those songs are the first things that come to mind. And I was listening to, I don't know, probably Shrek, actually, the movie, because they do the dance to the music. And I was thinking about them as a band, and it stuck in my brain. And I was like, I really need to learn more about them. And if you've never listened outside of like their radio hits, the sound, the flavors, everything in them, it was so cool. And I'm surprised they're one of those bands that was only there kind of, I guess, super popular for a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. How many hits they did have come out. But then I'm also not if you go out and listen to all the other songs.
Sure. But I mean, the catalog that they've left behind is so iconic. Mm-hmm. I mean, those songs that you read out there were pretty much just scratch the surface of some of the great music that Sly and the Family Stone has.
Yeah. And they've got like this really kind of almost like, I don't know. I don't want to call it like funky, but a very funky sound that works really well. It's not really psychedelic either. It's like a really nice layering. There's probably some guitar technique Tim knows that I don't know that makes some of that sound. But yeah, I love their overall like feeling is amazing. And they've got albums that I've listened from the beginning to the end, and they're good all the way through.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of Sly and the Family Stone albums in my collection, both, I think, which were thrifted, I believe, and both are great.
I don't know why. It was just one of those things. Tim's talked about, you've had one song or one band that you just like get hooked on for like 6 months straight. Mine was Sly and the Family Stone a few years ago when I was watching Shrek.
There we are. Shrek led you in that direction.
That's the dance to the music is at the end of Shrek.
I have never seen Shrek. However, I've had a Shrek experience at Universal Studios in Hollywood, California, where it was like, it wasn't a ride, but you went into it. And then they took you into a theater. And it was Shrek 3D. That's what it was. And it was a specially made Shrek cartoon, especially for the theater. And then the seats would drop and then it would spray water at you. Actually, it was Shrek 4D. That's what they called it.
Oh, yes, of course. I have been in those 4D things where the seats move and things hit you and air pumps out of certain areas, things like that.
Yeah, the other one that they had was Terminator 2. I think it's Terminator 2 4D, which was live action. And then you had 3D glasses and all the things that you said, water, air, seats dropping, with live actors on the stage and like 3D things that came out at you.
So have you heard any of the... Shrek actually has a really good... This is going to sound weird. Shrek has a good soundtrack. Like the music to Shrek is actually really good.
Yeah, and I think I actually have the Shrek soundtrack album in my collection on my computer, and I remember thinking at the time it had pretty good music.
I mean, like most people, when they think about the Shrek, they think of, well, it's the Rufus Wainwright version. Hallelujah's on there. I'm a Believer's on there. All Star. I'm on my way. The Proclaimers, like we were just talking about earlier. Like I said, the dance to the music. And then at the end of Shrek, after like the credits, there was like a scene where all the characters are singing different karaoke's and stuff. So there's a lot of play on music. And there's music throughout the movie too. Like Donkey is played by Eddie Murphy, and he sings all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, he parties all the time, so I understand.
No, his girl likes to party all the time.
There we are. I need to.
My girl wants. That is one of the most underrated party songs. I swear, underrated.
And you know what? It was a song I don't think made a big splash in the UK. I only know of it since I've lived here.
Mm-hmm. The only reason I think I learned about it the first time, well, I knew about it, but the one time I can kind of track back, it wasn't that big here either. But Glee did a version of it. It was actually Gwyneth Paltrow who sang it. She was a guest show host or something on there. She did a really good job of it. And I remembered I loved her version, and it made me go back. But I don't know that I've really heard it very much like on the radio or anything.
No, I got the impression it was big here at the time.
Might have been.
But it sort of disappeared. And I said, I really don't think it was a UK thing.
Well, there we are. I mean, missing out. He's got a good voice. Like it's a hard song to sing. We're not talking about Whitney Houston here, Tim.
No, exactly.
I was just supposed to make Tim laugh. It didn't hit. All right.
There was an uncomfortable silence, a disturbance in the No Name Music House halls.
You guys didn't hear before we started. Me and Tim, something happened when he was doing the countdown like 3 times. There was a lot of awkward pausing at us trying not to laugh.
We'll put that on the blooper reel for Christmas.
There you are. We'll send him like a little like actual reel, Tim, with our faces and put a little stamp on it and send it a Christmas card.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll cut up some parts of the tape and hand that off. I don't know.
Anyway, all right. I think there was something about music being talked about.
Yeah, was it a year or something? I can't remember. All right, well, let's go on this one then. So another one from 1967 from Jackie Wilson. Your love keeps lifting me higher.
Oh, this is a favorite of mine. But once again, every one of these songs you're talking about from 1967 is used in every movie forever till the end of time, Tim. Like every single song you've said.
Well, I think it must speak to the relevance of the year because, I mean, I've got more songs that we could ever get to in this episode. And I had to whittle that down from an even bigger list that I saw, just the ones that I really wanted to speak about. There was such good music coming out in 1967, and that it probably speaks to that because all these songs are iconic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just crazy. Every time you keep saying it, I'm like, that was out in 1967 and that was out. Because, I mean, I love kind of that Motown soulful sound. I don't know if Jackie Wilson was on Motown or not. So don't quote me. Don't come for me, internet, if he wasn't. I don't remember, okay? I'm only a human. And I'm sorry when I run for mayor if this is wrong. But that sound that he has is very remnants of Motown. And that song has always been amazing. But that your love keeps lifting me, that part right there, just that riff alone, I swear I've heard it used 1,000 movies. Easily been in 1,000 movies and TV shows.
Yeah, I wish it hadn't been used in Ghostbusters 2 when the Statue of Liberty is walking across the Hudson when it's covered in some kind of weird Ghostbusters slime. And they had one of them's Walkman and they put it through the PA speakers. I mean, Ghostbusters 2 is terrible.
It ruined that song for Tim now. All I can think about is Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, I love Ghostbusters, but Ghostbusters 2 is poor in compared to the first one.
I feel like that's a generally accepted statement, Tim. I don't think you're telling anybody anything shocking.
No. I mean, are there any sequels that are better than the original?
I don't know. I struggle with that. I've thought about the only thing I could think is I liked some of the later Harry Potter movies over the original, but those are books and they're like kind of like I think of it as like one big book. You know what I mean, Tim? They're pieces instead of like a sequel where you have one beginning, middle, and end. And then another beginning, middle, and end in the next movie. Like Harry Potter is kind of weird because the movies flow into each other.
That's true. Know. The only one that I can think of, and this is a completely me obscure thing that only a few people would know. Are you familiar with the film Westworld featuring Yul Brynner?
Yes, I knew you were either going to say Westworld or Leprechaun 2.
Yeah. So Westworld is that thing. It's like it's from the 70s, but it's set in a dystopian future or whatever, where you can go to this place that is a Western town. Yep. And all of the people in it are androids. So you can shoot them, you can spend special time with them, whatever, that kind of stuff. And you can get away with anything you want, kill them. And then, of course, you just go back to your life and they're all just androids. But what happens is the androids become sort of self-aware and then they start killing guests.
And they did a TV show in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah. So they made a sequel to Westworld called Future World, which sort of followed on the same kind of ideas, more or less the same premise. But there was different worlds. There was a Western world, there was a medieval world, and there was one called Future World, which was like set in space and all this kind of stuff. And some of it was in zero gravity. But what happened in Future World, what they were doing is they invited the world's leaders and the world's press to Future World to show that these are new robots, they're safe. And the place was called Delos. Delos is a place to come. It's a great vacation destination. Nobody's ever going to get hurt again. All these safeguards are in place. Everything is great. But what they decided to do is get all the world's leaders, all the press, all the impressionable people, clone them, kill them, and then send the androids back out into society to rule the world.
I know that Charlie was watching. My husband has watched that movie about 1,000, both of them beside me. And I think that one night, was it you and your friend, what's his face with the hair?
John the Hair.
Was he talking about Westworld with you?
Yeah, he was probably telling you, which most people would say, that Westworld is better than Future World. However, I much prefer Future World to Westworld.
I think you and him were going back and forth about it. I'm sorry, John with the hair. I'm like, what is his name with the hair?
His name is John Warren, but he's known affectionately as John the Hair.
Every person in the UK that has ever played in a band has a subset of nicknames, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, I think you're right with that.
Like every person that Tim has introduced me to, or I've met through Zooms that maybe he didn't introduce me to, or he's talked about, they all have like nicknames. Even the ones who maybe aren't in bands, like Sarah and Andy, you guys called like the Bradders or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you are, Tim. You guys are keen on your nicknames.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a UK phenomenon or people I know phenomenon. I'm not entirely sure.
I think it's a musician thing.
Yeah, I was Caesar for the longest time, but I retired that nickname about 2 or 3 years ago.
Why Caesar?
Because when I joined Rough Justice, everyone had to have a nickname. And they went to the pub to decide whether I should be in the band. And the drummer Taffy decided I should be Caesar because I had a Caesar haircut.
And I'm guessing his real name is not Taffy.
No, it's Selwyn.
Of course, because Taffy and Selwyn sound so similar, and I would have totally knew that. Tim said that like, no, Joy, duh, it's Selwyn. Like, I would have known. So matter of fact. Sorry. But yeah, there's a phenomenon with the nicknames.
Yeah, it's not something that I've really seen here.
Now, people do have nicknames, like the guy who lives above me, I've told many times this, I didn't know his legal name until he got mail here because he goes by a nickname.
Huh.
So, he goes by Bobby, but that's not his legal name. And I don't know why he goes by Bobby because it doesn't sound anything like his legal name.
Well, there we are. Look, I mean, you can call yourself what you like. It's fine.
Fair enough. I'll call you whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I'm nice.
Okay, well, let's try and swing this back roughly to music. After we've covered the relative merits of Future World over Westworld.
And what's his face with the hair?
Yeah, there we are, John the Hair. All right, so let's come back strong. So this is Aretha Franklin's Respect.
Well, I mean, Once again, another song that's been used in every movie and everything since the beginning of time to indicate a female power who wants respect, but also her breakout song, right? Like, I don't know anyone whose first thought when they come to Aretha Franklin isn't respect. That is the very first song that comes to mind for me.
No, and I mean, she had an amazing career. She had legendary songs, and in my eyes, the only person who's suitable to have a Grammy. But yes, hundreds and hundreds of iconic songs of which you can pick so many, you could bring, 10 of them and it would still be an iconic career. But she's got so many good songs. But yeah, respect is probably the one if you ask the person on the street, that's what they're going to tell you.
Well, my favorite thing about Aretha Franklin was her version of Think for the Blues Brothers. Have you watched the Blues Brothers, Tim?
I have seen the Blues Brothers.
You know her when she's in the cafe and she's like singing and she's talking to him and he's like, you better think what you're trying to do to me. That scene, I listened to that specific version with the Blues Brothers in the background all the time. It's a favorite. I'm a huge Blues Brothers fan for those who don't know this. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time, mostly because I'm listening to it for the music, right? But that scene where she performs it and she's talking to him, fantastic, bar none.
Yeah, I played in a Blues Brothers tribute band for a very short period of time, maybe about 6 months or so. The guitar player couldn't fulfill his commitments and I was unemployed at the time. So everything sort of just came together nicely and I ended up playing in a Blues Brothers tribute band for about 6 months. So I've probably played Everybody Needs Somebody to Love more times than any person should ever have to, really. but it was good fun.
Did you do Giddy Up, the Rawhide?
Yeah, we did Rawhide. And they used to do some thing in Rawhide where one of the Blues Brothers people tried to light a cigarette with a whip. And there was a couple of times they did it and it caught the guy's nose.
That's because in the scene, remember they're like playing in that bar in the scene when they do the Rawhide. It's like a country bar. Mm-hmm. And the music they're playing is it hitting because they're trying to play all the soul sounds. So then they started playing Rawhide. And there's something with the whip in that scene.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is, but I know what you're talking about. There's something with that. And then they start, because it's one of those places where they have a
chicken wire.
Yeah, in front of you. Tim can see me holding up my hands like the podcast knows what I'm doing. And they're throwing beers at him. My older sister talked about she used to go to a bar that had one of those for bands to play with. And I was like, I don't think I'd play there.
No, I've never played anywhere with chicken wire, I'm pleased to report.
She said that. She said that she used to go to a bar and then when they would get excited, they'd throw the beers and stuff at the chicken wire so it bust. No, thank you. How much do they have to pay me to do that? It'd be a lot.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. If someone throws a beer bottle on the stage, I'm probably going to stop.
Tim's going to pick it up and throw it back at him.
Well, I've told the story before when I was at Bug Jam with Ian Husband and Frequency. I was up on a big stage. It was actually a stage that had been at Glastonbury the previous week. It was the Glastonbury B stage. So it was a big festival-style stage. And we were playing to 5,000, 6,000 people at Bug Jam. It was a big event. And we was playing away and having a great time. And I see coming from the audience a 2-liter bottle of orange Fanta drink. And it was like in slow motion. I could see it coming towards me, and it was going to hit me in the head. And I kind of just ducked to one side, and it flew past me and went behind me.
If it would have been me, I would have like ducked, and then it would have bounced off the other guy and hit me still. Like it come back from behind and like hit me anyway. Bounced off of something.
I mean, that's the closest I've come to something like that.
So Tim's not been playing Rawhide in any bars with chicken wire, is what he's saying.
No, I don't. I think if Flager Hill turn up at the wherever we're going to this weekend, and there's like a little box stage with chicken wire. I think all of the band will be like, do you know what, guys? Let's just go back home.
Well, to be fair, you play it like Moose Lodges. I wouldn't be shocked if something got through your head.
Well, I've seen Moose Lodges are funny. So, like, for our UK listeners, Moose Lodges are pretty much like British Legion clubs. It's probably the closest thing I can liken it to. It's somewhere between like a working man's club and a British Legion, but probably nearer a British Legion club. And as I said, I've played all kinds of gigs. I've played large festivals, like I just said. I've played for Hell's Angels, real Hell's Angels. I've played for other biker clubs. I've played private parties, big weddings that have had $100,000 thrown at it. I've played everything you could imagine. And the most shenanigans I've ever seen in my life are in Southwest Virginia moose lodges.
And they're still smoking like they're in a freight train.
I've seen fights. I've seen people getting balls smashed in their head. I've seen people with blood pouring out their face. I've seen people flashing. I've seen shenanigans.
And everyone there's double your age, too.
Yeah, the average age is probably 55, maybe. And the amount of shenanigans that goes on in these moose lodges, it's mind-blowing.
You guys aren't seeing me, but I had my hand up because I was basically hitting myself in the face. It zoomed as if I was raising my hand because I was like indicating, oh my God, Tim. I had to lower my hand. That's funny. But yeah, no, he's right. I mean, there's something, and VFWs can be a little spicy too, but those moose lodges, I don't know what those people, I feel like, I don't know. Maybe they've just been around each other for too long or something.
Maybe. But yeah, it's shenanigans-tastic and it's unexpected because I've played lots of British Legion clubs and I didn't have that in the UK.
But is the alcohol free or is the alcohol free flowing or can they bring their own? How does the alcohol work at these moose lodges?
Well, most moose lodges don't have a liquor license. And in the state of Virginia, you need a different kind of license to sell liquor than you do to sell beer and wine.
Yeah.
So a lot of these places you go, you can buy wine coolers or beer, mostly just cans of beer that they get out of a big multi-pack, to be honest. But if you want to bring hard liquor, you bring your own. And some places will make you put it behind the bar, but some places just let you put it on the table.
And let's be honest, if they're just like got a flask and they're hiding it, who's really looking that for? No one.
But they're not hiding it. They're bringing in Crown Royal and vodka and whiskey and goodness knows what. They're plonking it on the table. Why. And then you go to the bar and then you buy like a little can of Coke to mix it with. And then you pour yourself out like some liquor, which is like the entire cup. So I suppose really I've answered my own question, really.
That's what I'm getting at, Tim. This is why, because you said they're bringing in their own liquor. There's no bartender going, okay, you're done now, because they're bringing it from home. They can bring 2 fists of brandy and throw them down on the table.
I know.
There's your answer. That's why they're getting so rowdy.
It's just remarkable. I mean, that isn't somewhere that I would ever go to recreationally. I've been to maybe 1 or 2 recreationally to see fellow bands. Like, someone I know plays in a band around here and said, oh, we're playing at so-and-so, why don't you come out? And I've done that a few times if I'm not playing. But the thought of going down the Wherever Moose Lodge on a Saturday night just to hang out. No, I'm not. That's not my scene.
It's crazier than and I've been to Blacksburg. Tim knows we live near 2 major college towns, and college towns do have their party nights. And that sounds more intense than what you find at the bars here. It is because you can just bring your own. Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I've played lots of student type events. Yeah. I did play actually with the Blues Brothers tribute band. I played in Nottingham, and it was Nottingham University, and they were playing. They had some kind of, I forget what kind of game it was, but it was some rough and ready wrestling style game that these university types were doing, and then somebody got knocked out. And then we had to stop playing and wait for the paramedics to come. I do remember that.
And this was just a game they were playing?
I don't know what they were doing. It was some kind of something rough and ready university thing where there was stuff going on. But anyway, one of them got knocked out. And I also remember that night I left both my guitar stands in that venue.
Because you were too busy waiting for ambulances to leave.
No, I just forgot them.
Oh, you never went back?
Well, it was Nottingham. It was too far. By the time I'd driven back, I mean, I was in their van. So yeah. I used to drive from wherever I was living at the time, probably Twickenham or Feltham, I can't remember. Actually, it was Chiswick. I was living in Chiswick. So I go from there to Reading, then I'd meet the guy who ran the band, get in his van, transfer all the gear in the van, and then we'd drive off to wherever we went to. So we went to Nottingham, which was maybe a couple of hours drive, maybe longer than that, I can't remember. And then, so by the time you trace that whole journey back and you get back home, I mean, it wouldn't be worth going to get those guitar stands. You could just buy 2 more and it'd be cheaper.
Fair. Okay, I'm not judging you as much anymore. All right, Tim, what do you have left on your list?
Okay, well, I'm going to do, let's do one more of this rapidly devolving episode that's got nothing to do with 1967.
We literally have not even scratched the surface. All right, what's next?
Okay, so this one is from the album Are You Experienced? And this is the Jimi Hendrix song, The Wind Cries Mary.
Well, I guess it would make sense that you would end the 1960s episode on Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, and let me tell you about Jimi Hendrix. So I've never really been a Jimi Hendrix fan. I've never really rated him much as a guitar player. Now, a lot of people sort of scorn on you when you say that. How dare you? How dare you speak about Jimi Hendrix so badly? But I mean, I'm not, you look at like Eric Clapton, what he was doing back in the day. You look at Jeff Beck, you look at Pete Townsend, you look at a lot of those legendary names. I always felt that they brought something great to the lexicon of rock. And I don't know, with Jimi Hendrix, there were some amazing songs written. And I've gone back and listened to all of those Jimi Hendrix albums recently as part of the 1001 Albums Challenge. And there is some amazing music there, pioneering music, especially Electric Ladyland with Eddie Kramer's studio production. And you listen to that in headphones, and that's mind-blowing. I mean, Sgt. Pepper sort of opened the can of worms, if you were, of studio production. But then you listen to what like Eddie Kramer was doing with Jimi Hendrix. I mean, they were using flanges and phasers and panning it left and right and all kinds of stuff going on and stuff going backwards. And it was really sort of moving on from the foundation that Sgt. Pepper laid. But again, the guitar playing doesn't blow me away. Not as much as the songs like this do. And then this is such a good song. It's a beautifully written song, beautifully
it's a love song too.
Yeah, the vocal performance is great. It's such a good song, but I like this because it's a good song and its performance more than the mind-blowing guitar playing.
So that's interesting. I know that the song was written about like his girlfriend or fiance or something at the time. So, and it is and that's what I've always kind of thought is I thought his songwriting was very unique. People talk a lot about his guitar playing, but his songwriting was really unique. The other thing we have to think about though, Tim, you said all of that, you know, what you just said about him, he was only 27 years old when he died. Imagine what would have came next. Imagine if he had the choice. Like we talked about, there's these really big artists that are so, you know, there's literally the whole Forever 27 club. Mm-hmm. You've got Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix. I could go on for days, right? That huge rock and roll history thing. And they were such small, like they only lived for 27 years. And probably of that, their careers were maybe 5-6 years at the most, if they started really young. But Janis Joplin has this iconic look, sound. I can't hear, like, if someone says the word like me and Bobby McGee, that's what I always think of. Such a great sound, iconic look, definition of the 60s for females, right? Mm-hmm. And then Jimi Hendrix is the exact same thing, but on the flip side. That's what I was saying. It's so interesting that you would end with him, of course. But think about how small and how little lived their careers had to be. And to this day, they define kind of a generation.
That's true. I mean, because he was probably only active as a musician, you know, in the public eye, 4 years, 5 years, maybe, probably not even that. Yeah. And like you say, he created such a dent in the culture that he's still spoken of widely to this day. I often liken him a little bit to Carlos Santana. And the reason I say that is because like Carlos Santana had a very unique thing going on. You know, he had like the samba beats and he had that very unique guitar sound and all that kind of stuff. So he was pioneering in his own way. But people love Carlos Santana, but people don't speak of him in the same ilk as a Jimi Hendrix. But I think the reason that is because Carlos Santana is still alive and is still getting it done. And he's had a career that's gone through ups and downs and he's embraced different music genres and he's done different things. And you know, you're at the point that you are now. I think if Jimi Hendrix had have lived, it would be a similar kind of thing. Yes, people would still talk about him being relevant and defining that generation.
I think you're right, though.
But I don't think it would be the same because he would have had, you know, he would have gone through the 70s and maybe he would have got into, I don't know, soul music, and then would have got into the 80s and he might have embraced electro pop, and then Jimi Hendrix in the 90s might have got into rap. I mean, I don't. You don't know how his career would have gone. So you don't know. And
it's just so interesting because those 5 years of consecutive 4 years, 3 years, however long his career was, can have defined how he is viewed. He's viewed as a 60s psychedelic, almost counterculture icon. And you're right. We don't know what he would have done next. It's so interesting how those small pieces can define these people forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had some good thoughts at the end there, even if this was a wild episode.
Well, there we are. That was my take on 1967 via talking about Westworld and things.
Money conversion. And Tim trying to rule out all the outliers we'd have to take into account to do the conversion properly. People's eyes were glassing over. All right, what do you have to say for the people?
Just be extra kind, everybody.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.